Hey, what's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Roll Pod, an Alabama sports podcast from Bama 247. I am staff writer Cody Goodwin, joined today once again by the one and only Alex Scarborough. Alex, we are 51 days officially away from week one at the time of this recording, and literally just 4 days away from SEC Media Days. Can you feel the excitement building for 2024?
Yeah, it's more anxiety than excitement for me, just because trying to get all your ducks in a row and make sure you're ready to go. But there's something exciting, yes, about like, look, we can finally turn the page from talking about the unknown and guessing and projecting to saying, okay, here's what it's going to look like. Here's what an actual depth chart is going to be. And then, oh, by the way, here are results. Like, here's what's going to happen. And it feels like the off season never really ended because of everything that went on. So might as well just go ahead and turn the page.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. SEC Media Days. We'll touch on this a little bit later in the show. That's more or less our unofficial kickoff to the following season, right? And so we're going to kind of sort of preview SEC Media Days today. They begin Monday in Dallas. We'll touch more on that again later in the show. But what I wanted to start with today was that EA Sports released their top 100 list for the upcoming EA College Football 25 game, the NCAA video game that will be released next week. Much hype. We've talked about it here. We will continue to talk about it here because we've got some fun plans in the works with regards to the video game. But EA made some noise on Wednesday by releasing their top 100 list, and 6 Alabama players made the top 100 list. Parker Brailsford at number 32, Malachi Moore at number 35, Tyler Booker at number 43, Jaden Roberts, I think a little nice surprise addition there at number 60, Jalen Milroe at 71, and Deontay Lawson at 76. Believe Alabama and Georgia both had 6 additions. Ohio State led all schools with 8 players on EA Sports top 100 list. Wanted to start here, Alex. What do we think about the Alabama additions? I guess we can start there. The 6 Alabama players that made the top 100 list. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we agree, disagree? Who got left off? Who was, like I said, I think Jaden Roberts is a surprise addition. Anybody else? What are your initial thoughts seeing the list?
I feel like it's going to be the same kind of thing as what we said when we were talking about the rankings they put out for offense and defense. It's the right people. It's maybe the wrong order is kind of the way I'd look at it a little bit. Just surprised maybe more than thinking it's outright wrong. Brailsford being the top guy was a little bit surprising to me. I know he's a really good player, but a little bit undersized as a center, and centers typically don't get the kind of love that, say, a left tackle or a safety would. Or I thought the first guy to show up was probably going to be Tyler Booker, to be honest with you, because of the experience he has, the position, everything, all the above. And then to see Roberts on there, not that I don't think he can be really good. I do. Just surprised to see him in the top 100. And then Milroe to trail all of those names was a little bit surprising. Again, finished 6th in the Heisman Trophy race. I know he's a lot of polishing left to do as a quarterback, but a little bit surprised by that. So not trashing the list like maybe last time, but again, some things I would probably tweak.
I'm sure a lot that played into Brailsford being the highest rated Alabama player was the fact that he was the center of the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line last year at Washington. So I'm sure that carries quite a bit of weight. Malachi Moore's a 5th-year senior coming back, has pretty steadily been a pretty reliable piece of the Alabama secondary, has been an on and off starter since his true freshman season. I was surprised that Tyler Booker was 3rd on the list of Alabama players. I think, we've been rolling out our top 25 list, and believe it was Rodak that wrote the Tyler Booker, who we had at number 5 in terms of most important, but he even made mention of it in that story. And I think we all kind of assume now he more or less could be Alabama's best pound for pound player this upcoming season. I think he's one of the few, or sometimes the only one, that has kind of showed up on the early preseason NFL draft prospect list for this upcoming season. Widely regarded as probably going to be a preseason All-American pick at left guard. Has been very, very steady since entering the starting lineup. So to see him 3rd was a little bit surprising. I agree with you on Roberts. Very good player last year. Was exactly what Alabama needed, I thought, at right guard. He took the spot over in the A&M game and never really gave it back. But to be number 60 overall in the entirety of college football, you're talking like 134 teams. And I know that a lot of the guys on the top 100 list are, the Power 4 schools, primarily SEC and Big Ten, handful of Big 12 and ACC as well. But to see him number 60 overall. Okay, like I think he could end up there. I didn't think he would start there. And then, yes, to see Milroe at number 71 was interesting because I think you and I both agree. I think he's a top 50 player. Like we have mentioned time and time again about the returning Heisman vote. He's the leader in that category from last season. And when you go, you can filter some of the EA Sports list if you tinker around on the website. Milroe is not only number 71 overall, but number 5, I believe, of the quarterbacks that were listed in the top 100. If you look at it, I'm counting them down now: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total quarterbacks in the top 100. You can argue whether there should be more or less. He's number 5, which sounds right, even if 71 doesn't sound right. You could maybe argue the order of where these quarterbacks are, but the 4 quarterbacks listed in front of him: Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, Carson Beck from Georgia, Quinn Ewers from Texas, and Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. He played at Oklahoma last year. So I don't know. There's a few different ways to look at this list, but yeah, there were a couple of maybe not head scratchers, but just kind of, that's interesting moments when I was looking at it.
I appreciate the fact that unlike the NFL draft, it's not just quarterback. Like you could put 30 quarterbacks on here if you were an NFL front office. But the fact that they kind of spread the love is a good thing. We could kind of quibble with the order of the quarterbacks. I think it kind of makes sense. I'd probably flip Gabriel and Milroe just because Gabriel's a nice player, but I think there's a little bit of stat packing that goes on with the offenses that he's been in and the defenses he's played. The interesting thing is when you dig into the actual like attributes, Milroe 91 speed might actually be underselling him a little bit. Yeah, I think he's one of the fastest players in college football. So there's some things we can get into that are interesting. I think Roberts, you're underselling him at 93 strength. I mean, the way people talk about him, dude's the Incredible Hulk. So it's something to talk about. I don't think, like I said, I don't think they got it wrong, but I think we could quibble with the order on some of these things.
Well, and to your point about it not being quarterback, you look at the top 10 players overall, right? And in the top 100, I believe all those players are 90 overall in their overall player rating or above. But you look at the top 10 players, number 1, Will Johnson from Michigan is a corner. Then you've got Will Campbell from LSU, who's a left tackle. Ollie Gordon, the second from Oklahoma State's a running back. He's at number 3. Then you've got James Pierce from Tennessee, Caleb Downs, now at Ohio State at number 5. Travis Hunter's there, receiver, defensive back, Malachi Starks, Mason Graham. Like the first quarterback is Shedeur Sanders, and he's not until number 17 overall.
Yeah.
So there was clearly a concerted effort and attention to detail to not just, okay, who are the quarterbacks, who are the edge rushers, who are the left tackles, who are the stars, so to speak. Like they clearly, and granted, all the guys in the top 10 are stars, but there was clearly a attention to detail here that I think college football fans, whether you're a casual fan or a diehard fan, will probably really appreciate this. I thought this was impressive. I thought it was an impressive list. And it's, looking at some of the intangibles, like you can quibble with like strength, number, awareness, jumping, speed, acceleration, but clearly they did their homework. This is a pretty impressive list.
It is wild to me, though, and I know this isn't an Alabama-centric thing. And I think Will Johnson is a terrific player. There's actually a connection there because Courtney Morgan was instrumental in recruiting him when he was part of that staff at Michigan for a year. How Will Johnson is ranked ahead of Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is incredible. Like the athleticism there and the fact that he's making those plays, not surrounded by the most talent, and he plays both ways. I'm kind of shocked he was not the number 1 overall player. If we're just going pound for pound, just attributes across the board, I think he's the most talented player in college football.
I'm not going to push back too much because I tend to agree. Because of the schedule, I was able to watch a handful of those early season Colorado games last year. He's good, man. Like he is, you can tell he does his homework on both sides of the ball. He sits in meetings and he is just the freakiest of freak athletes. Like there were a lot of plays last year where it's just like, whoa. Like I understand why he wanted to play for Dion, no matter wherever Dion went, because like I'm pretty sure his future's at cornerback or at least defensive back. At least I'd like to think so because he's such a freak athlete. I think he could do that. But man, he could probably be drafted at receiver too. Like that is like he's different.
He's the closest thing we have to Champ Bailey in a long time, and I know I'm going way back there, but like just the fluidity, the instincts, all of those things, and just clearly, again, the amount of work that goes into it. So yeah, again, you can quibble with the order, but I do like the fact that they didn't overlook Lawson. I think a lot of people do. Getting him in that top 100, I think, was a sign that yeah, they clearly did their homework. Look, they had 10 years to do it. Plenty of time to figure out. Okay, this is the way we need to do it, and they enlisted a lot of help. Yeah, I'll figure out a way to forgive them for their stadium rankings, but for player rankings, so far so good.
So I think we're of the impression that maybe guys like Jalen Milroe and Tyler Booker maybe not rated as high as we would have personally rated them. Jaden Roberts was a surprise in the top 100. Do you think anybody from Alabama's roster currently was left off that maybe should have been included in the top 100? Or are you happy with these 6 guys?
I'm mostly happy. I mean, I'd have to go into the whole top 100 to tell you, oh, this guy's better than this guy. I mean, there's a couple of guys who you wonder, like, could Jihad Campbell have snuck in there? Could one of the defensive tackles snuck in there? I actually think Keon Sabb has a chance by the time it's all said and done to be part of that mix. But as we sit today, this seems right when you're talking about the top 100 players in all of college football. And I think this list seems about right. I mean, I'd argue that Jaden Roberts was more a surprise who was in there than who was out. And it's not a knock on Jaden Roberts. We both think he's going to be really good, but the fact that they projected him that high, I think said something.
What do we think? Because we're going to get to talk to Milroe and Malachi and Booker at SEC Media Days next week. What do we think they're going to say about their ratings? Like, I feel like Milroe is going to be upset about his speed because, like you and I have said, like and I'm sure he knows he's fast, like, right? Like, he just refuses to talk about himself in that way when the cameras and the recorders are on. But what do you think the reaction is going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be. I think it'd be a different reaction privately than publicly because I think Milroe is very cognizant, and I don't blame him for this one bit. He doesn't want to be seen as an athlete first. He wants to be seen as a quarterback first. That's why he'll say things about how his view on I'm not a running quarterback, all of those things. So I don't. You might get a smile out of him, a knowing smile, but I don't think he's going to really beef too hard on it. I mean, I think he might say something about having only 70 strength among DBs. He's pretty cut. I mean, but they did him 97 awareness. Yeah,
it's pretty good.
They're saying that guy knows ball. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, like, if they know. I don't know if we'll get the full player rankings by the time we get to Dallas, but more so like, okay, who was undersold on this team in terms of receivers and speed and acceleration and jumping and hands and all of those things. It's so hard to get a quote out of Milroe these days. He wears that coaching cap, and it's on there pretty snug.
Well, and you and I are joking about his speed only being a 91, and I mean, you could argue his acceleration should be better than 93 because as soon as he decides, that when he decides to go, that first step is unbelievable. But he was only listed at 75 for strength too, and like anybody that watched Milroe last year, like that's a big dude. Like he is a big dude. He not only took some hits, but he laid down some hits, and he was hard to bring down at times, not just because of his speed, but because he's 6'3", 220. Like I'd be a little peeved about that. Also, like all the deep balls he was chucking last year, like accurately, like that takes a lot of arm strength. Like I know it's a lot more motion into the throw, but like you need some muscle to do what he was able to do last year. So I'd be a little disrespected by that too.
Yeah, I wish we did not get arm strength and accuracy for the quarterbacks, did we? The one thing I'll give them the benefit of the doubt maybe when it comes to the strength piece and the speed and acceleration, this is something we've talked about on here and offline too, is there's a piece of Jalen that does not want to run, that wants to stay in the pocket as long as humanly possible. So when he runs, it's not always a design thing. So where I'm getting at with this is if he wanted to run like Tim Tebow, he could do that. And all of those numbers across the board would be very different. That's just not what he wants to be as a quarterback. So the style of running doesn't always, I think, match the attributes, if that makes sense. Because there are times where he goes down where you think, man, he could have just run through that tackle. And he's protecting himself. And maybe that's the right thing to do. But there's just a mentality there that said that I think impacts the way he runs. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's protecting
Right.
himself. He's thinking himself as a quarterback first. But I think that's where you could say, yeah, he's on, in a weight room, he's got 95 strength. But as a runner, because of the way he operates, getting out of bounds, getting down, all of those things, maybe you can say 75.
That makes sense. And, that kind of lends to the point that we've made on this podcast. And even when we talked about off of it, like excited to see what more Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan and the gang can unlock out of him, because clearly when he decided to run last year, when he made the conscious decision to do that, Alabama's offense opened up. There has been a running element as part of Kalen DeBoer's offenses from the quarterback position. So how do they best marry that to get the most out of Milroe and to also unlock almost every aspect of this offense with Alabama's personnel? That's one of the kind of really super interesting subplots to this 2024 Alabama season. But that kind of steers away from the EA Sports part of this.
No, but I think it's important. I think it's going to determine Alabama's success and Jalen Milroe's success is, can he trust what he's seeing? Which is, if I don't think something's open, just go. Don't even think about it. Just go. And if you think somebody's open or you can throw them open, throw the ball. Let it rip. You've got all of those things. Like what they have said publicly and privately is basically the same thing. Like, this dude is a freak talent-wise. And I think it's just a matter of getting him to trust his own instincts on things, because if he can play fast and loose, we know what that can look like. And I think everything else, running and throwing, gets better if that's the case.
Not to make a comparison, but like I remember listening to interviews when Jaden Daniels, between the first year at LSU and Brian Kelly's system and the second year, and a lot of the growth he made was just the ability to process and the ability to make quick decisions, right? Because obviously he can throw the ball out of the stadium. He's also the fastest dude on the field no matter what team they played. And so it was a matter of trusting what you're seeing, making the decisions. And for him, it led to a Heisman Trophy season. I'm not saying if Jalen Milroe is the best version of himself this season that he will win the Heisman Trophy, but he could, like, side note. But it would obviously improve him overall as a player, and it would do wonders for Alabama's offense.
That is a very good comparison, because I spent a lot of time talking with, in my former role, talking with Jaden about that specific thing. And talking
that might be where I saw it.
Yeah, and talking to Brian Kelly, who basically told him, like, look, let it go, let it rip. And it was a different thing with Jaden, because there was hesitancy throwing the deep ball. There was hesitancy about not wanting to turn the football over. But I think the same logic still applies in the short to intermediate game. When you see Milroe, you see a lot of, little, hitch. And, when he keeps stretching the play out of the pocket and not just running. Again, just trust that you are talented enough and that your teammates are talented enough to let it go, and trust the scheme. And I think that's where I think there's going to be an improvement over last year and the last 2 years, really, is I think the scheme overall is going to be a lot stronger. And if Milroe trusts it, I think they've got a really good chance to do great things. But you're right. I think it's between the ears. It's not a matter of talent. It's just, hey, trust what you're seeing, let it go, let it rip.